Hey everybody, in this Dan Reacts, we're going to be looking at a video that gives advice about how to raise godly children.
We got 4 kids, and every one of them, they love the church, they love the Lord Jesus. And listen to me, and we forced them.
I think right off the bat, he's being provocative for the point that he's going to make, because there is a big debate amongst Christians about how much of the faith you force upon your kids. Do you force them to go to church? Do you force them to read their Bibles? Do you force them to pray and to do different spiritual habits? And so right off the bat, he's putting out there that he is advocating for, yes, we force them to do it. We don't just leave them to their own decision on these things.
And I hear it. Well, I don't want to force my kids to go to church. I don't want to, what? You force them to clean that room. I don't want them to turn them off to Jesus. Chill. Jesus is good.
So the advice chill probably needs to be fleshed out a little bit. But the earlier point he made, I think, is really significant, where as a parent, we force our kids to do all sorts of things. You know, we do force them to clean their room. We do force them to eat their vegetables. We force them to say please and to say thank you and to do different chores around the house, and sometimes even to look somebody in the eye when they're shaking their hands. There's all kinds of things that we force our kids to do. And it has to do with the different values that we are trying to inculcate into them. And so we all know, all right, my kid might grow up and they'll eventually make their own choice, and maybe they will not eat any vegetables. Maybe they'll make choices that will be terribly unhealthy and make them morbidly obese. Maybe they will not take care of their home, and they'll have all kinds of things go wrong and mold come up because they just decide not to do it. Yeah, that's fair enough. They will get to a point where they will make their own decisions, but in the meantime, we still force them to behave in a certain way to fit in with society in a positive way, not just to go with the crowd, but to conform appropriately to what's expected of them. And why is it that when it comes to the spiritual aspect of things, we suddenly get really strange about this, about the idea that we would force them, at least in certain actions, to conform to what we want them to be?
A lot of people want to train their kids up that we go to church. No, you are the church. And so we forced our kids to be the church. Why? Because outside the church, there's a demonic attack against them. And the only way to fight them is with the King of Glory.
Yeah, with this overall subject, I think that there are legitimate disagreements that Christians can have as far as what all you force and at what ages. I think that it makes a lot of sense when your kids are young just to say, hey, we are part of the church. We belong to a church. And that means that every Sunday we are there. That means that we are part, if we're doing a service day, we are there. That may even mean as the kids get a little bit older and more capable, hey, we all serve within the church. We all serve in a certain way. So you're helping out with the kids, or you're helping out with greeting, or you're helping out with tech. You're doing something like that. I think all of those make a lot of sense. I think there are times where you get into different parents approaching it differently as far as, all right, am I forcing my kid to do their devotions? Am I saying, all right, now you're going to go to your room right now, you're going to read this passage, you're going to journal here, you're going to pray for this many minutes? I think those are where you can get into more legitimate discussions about, all right, how much do you invite with that and how much do you force? With our family, and thankfully with our kids, they've been very positive towards Jesus and very positive toward the church. But it was a non-negotiable. We communicated to them, hey, we are committed to Jesus and we are committed to his church. And so that doesn't mean that there's never going to be a Sunday that there's a legitimate reason to miss, but those are going to be few and far between, because we are communicating to you the significance of this. Now, they have all had to make hard decisions about whether they will put their faith in Jesus, and then further hard decisions about how much am I going to pursue him. And as my kids have gotten older and into the teenage years and even into adulthood, my wife and I have tried to have a presence that's much more inviting. Sometimes at the dinner table, we're going to crack open the Bible and we're going to read it and we're going to talk about it. And that's not opt-in. That's something that everybody is going to participate in. But as far as reading the Bible on their own and praying on their own, I've tried to approach it much more inviting. Hey, I'm going to give you resources. I just bought this devotional for you. I'm going to give you some advice. I'm going to show you some different things that I've tried to try to invite them into a real deep, close connection with Jesus. But I think that the idea that, especially when our kids are young, we'd say, well, we're not going to force them to go to church, or we're not going to force them to go to youth group, or we're not going to force them to participate in something like that. I think that this is very strange. And it's very strange that at the most important thing in life, we would suddenly stop saying, we're going to force you to do something that's good for you, even if you don't feel like doing it.